Traders, how are you? Marcello, founder of the Day Trading Academy, co-founder of Speed Up Trader. Today we're doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. Market on Monday started negative, but did end up mixed. We had a situation where the treasury yields, or the interest on the debt, right? The interest on the bonds that the U.S. government issues, climbed with the Biden stimulus plan being passed through the Senate. There's a lot of concerns that the U.S. economy is awash in cash. It's going to spur inflation, and also the pandemic is starting to fade as well. That's the expectation anyway. Now, one of the things that I told you about last week, we have a situation where the debt is literally just exploding, right? I did a video on the Spanish side that, let me know if you guys want me to upload it on the English side as well, about the crash of the dollar. We had the 2008, 2009 crisis, right? Because of that, Bush, the younger, had to issue a ton of debt to be able to help, quote unquote, the system. He issued, if I'm not mistaken, it's not an exact number, close to $6 trillion in debt overall during his term. I think it's around 5.6, 5.7. If you guys want the exact number, just Google it. You'll find it pretty quickly. Then after that, Obama came in, and in 8 years, right? So we had about 5-ish, close to 6 in his full 8-year term for younger Bush. Then Obama comes in, and in the span of 8 years, he added more debt than every other president combined in the history of the United States. We're talking about close to about 8 trillion or so. So then Trump comes in, and because of the COVID, which I'm not excusing, but he wasn't really balancing the budget before COVID anyway, right? King of debt, remember, real estate. So he comes in, and in 4 years almost adds the same amount of debt that Obama adds in 4 years that Obama did, remember, in 8 years. Now we have the Biden administration that comes in, and in just over 20 days adds close to 25% of what Trump added in 4 years. So you guys can see that the increase in the amount of debt that we're adding is literally unsustainable. And while some people think that you can just print money forever, the U.S. does have a privileged position because everybody wants our dollars. Once people start figuring out that they're not going to want to lend us money anymore, then we're going to have a big problem because we're going to have to what's called monetize our debt. We already had a situation with the 7-year note where basically almost no foreigners wanted to buy it, and the U.S. government had to jack up the interest rate in order to get people to buy it. So the interest rate going up is a very big problem because we have so much debt at this point that if the interest rate goes up, it's going to be harder for us to service the debt, and then we're in a literal death spiral heading to the downside, because then you have to issue more debt to pay the debt you owe, and then it's just all the way down. And that's literally the direction that we're headed into. In my opinion, they're doing it on purpose to put in the new government coin, right? But I'm letting you know so you can prepare, right? You guys watch these videos so you can learn about what's happening, what's going to happen. But inflation is definitely coming, and we're already starting to see the signs of it in some markets like lumber and food and oil and other things as well. Tuesday, the market was higher. The Dow reached a new intraday high of 32,000. Wednesday was mostly higher. The S&P 500 went up and also hit a new record close. Thursday, we had a higher market as well, with the Dow hitting a record high in addition to the S&P hitting a record high. And then Friday, the U.S. markets were mixed, with the Dow hitting another record high, which is the 5th consecutive record high of that market. For the week, the Dow was up 4.07%, the S&P 500 went up 2.63%, and the NASDAQ went down 4.5%. International market news. Overall, the European markets are mostly positive, with Italy going up 4.99%. Latin American markets are mostly mixed as well, with the biggest winner being the Socialist Republic of Argentina going up 3.87%. Canada, for those of you guys that are watching in Canada, the markets in Canada went up 2.27%. Africa and the Middle East mixed as well. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia went up 3.73%, while Egypt went down 0.64%. And in the far, far east, the Nikkei in Japan is the biggest winner at 2.95%, while the Philippines is the biggest loser at 2.27%. Bitcoin, as I'm recording this video, just crushed 60,000, taking out $250 million worth of shorts. Overall for the week up to Friday, As I took all the information on Friday, just to let you know, as of Friday, it went up to just under 57,000. It went up 16.45% overall for 2021. It's up 230%. Commodities consisting of metals and crops and industries like shipping, all are significantly increasing in price. A lot of people are saying that this is primarily due to the disruptions for the COVID-19, the quarantines and the cargo market. For example, we ship cross country via the big shipping boats. There's a lot of shipping containers that are in one country and another, and there's not kind of the normal fluidity of the market anymore. And we also have a problem with the government policy responses and surge in overall demand, because now that we're getting out of a lot of these complete quarantines, everybody's kind of ordering stuff and then things aren't where they need to be, so it's a mess. Now, a lot of skeptics are seeing the rise is largely driven by temporary spurts or bottlenecks, so we're going to see in the future what's actually going to happen. The base metals, EU is aiming to produce battery cells of at least 7 million electric cars by 2025. So there's a demand for that. North American lumber prices, if you guys were going to buy a new home, the demand for wood has exploded compared to previous years. So the prices are going to extend the gains that they did in 2020 through 2021. If you're going to buy a new single family home in the US, the price has gone up by $24,386 because the price of timber has gone up so far. That's in the past 10 months. And we have a situation where we have a lumber deficit in the United States, and a lot of the lumber producers are trying to lobby Biden to remove the restrictions to be able to ship from Canada because they have a surplus there. Now, we are most likely in the U.S. going to have to get lumber from places like Europe, for example. They've had a situation where they had a beetle infestation. And so they have had a situation where they've had to do increased logging. And the only places in the world where there's really quite a bit of excess lumber is in the south of the United States and also in Russia. So if you guys want to go to Russia to invest in some timberland, the south would probably be the best place. Brent oil, which is international oil, surged above $71 a barrel after a terminal was attacked in Saudi Arabia. It's actually the world's largest crude terminal. Other than that, oil has been surging quite a bit due to this attack, in addition to the production cuts that OPEC Plus has planned. And also, in addition to that, the expectation, let's say, that things are going to get back to normal, so demand for oil is going to go back up. It's those three things combined. Iran has quietly been moving record amounts of oil to its top client, China, in recent months. India's being the third largest importer in the world, the refiners there are also stating that they're going to add imports from Iran as well, due to the fact that the assumption is that the U.S. is going to go ahead and back off of the sanctions that Trump put on. U.S. crude for the week, it went down 0.73% to 65.61. International Brent went up 0.22% to 69.22. And precious metals, gold went up 1.63% to 1,728, while silver went up, I have mine right here. Let me show you this, is pretty cool. Morgan dollars. Silver went up 2.8% to 26.03. Check that bad boy out. It's from 1800s. Oh, pretty cool. So, the financial and banking news, consumer prices rose solidly in February by 0.4% after rising 0.3% in January. Biggest annual gain in a year, even though a lot of inflation for the tepid demand for services is not up yet. In addition to that, governments around the world borrowed a record amount of money. So it isn't just the U.S., it's literally the whole world. And this is why, my crazy conspiracy theory, they're doing it on purpose to be able to make things so bad eventually that we got to accept the government coin. So they borrowed collectively $16.3 trillion in debt in 2020. They're expected to borrow another $12.6 trillion this year. And some analysts are predicting a strong economic bounce back this summer, which will generate inflation. Eventually, these countries, a lot of them, are going to have to deal with the debt that they already borrowed because, again, as I explained to you kind of that process in the beginning, if the interest rates just go up a little bit, there's a big problem because a lot of these countries aren't going to be able to service that debt anymore. In political news, Syria Assad in Syria has held power there since 2000 through the Arab Spring, when, we had a lot of the autocrats in the Middle East toppling for quote unquote democracy. 10 years later, after the Syrian civil war, in addition to, the attacks on the country, they just passed presidential elections and Assad is still in power. Obviously, this has to do a lot because of the support of Iran and Russia. If you guys don't know, Russia's now in the Middle East. If you guys haven't been in tune with the news recently. In economic news, India's economy plunged into a recession for the first time in almost 25 years. They're actually expected to grow this year and take the lead of the fastest growing economy in the world at 12.6% for the fiscal year, which means April to April. They contracted about 7% in 2020. The economy of the U.S. is expected to expand at 6.5% this year. It's 3% higher than what was originally expected, thanks to all the stimulus. So it sounds great, right? If you guys remember the actual stimulus bill that they just passed, it was $1.9 trillion. We got just a sliver of that. If that would have been divided by every American in the U.S., that would have been something along the lines of $5,500 for everybody. We only got $1,400. So the question is, where did all the money go? And now they're talking about a $2 billion. I don't think you guys realize how bad this is going to be. So find your information, start prepping, prepare for the zombies. The zombies are coming. Other than that, the Australian economy is forecasted to grow 4.5% in 2021. This has to do with a successful battle against the COVID-19, to be able to contain it. In addition to that, Europe is being marred right now with a double dip recession, as they're expected to contract slightly in the first quarter of 2021, mostly because they're lockdown happy there in Europe. Notice, for example, the policies of states like South Dakota or Florida. South Dakota never closed. They didn't have a mask mandate. They didn't have more people dying than everybody else. There's actually news coming out now. Florida was one of the earliest kind of major states to open, right? And there weren't a significant higher number of deaths in Florida either. So it's interesting to kind of see the difference in those numbers between the lockdowns and states that didn't have them. GameStop and corporate news surged 41.21% on Monday to 194.50. The retail traders are back. There's an activist and founder of Chewy Inc. His name is Ryan Cohen. They added him to the board to be able to help with the business, and that's part of the reason why it exploded again. And then Coupang, which is South Korea's biggest e-commerce company, became the largest IPO in 2021, raising $4.6 billion. In trade news, the UK's exports to the EU collapsed in January, 41% from December to January. This has to do with a lot of companies struggling with the new terms following the Brexit. In addition to that, the demand, or the problem being able to find the semiconductors is being exacerbated now by geopolitics. There's two countries. Semiconductors are big, right? We need them essentially for everything now because everything is electronic, whether it's your car or your house or refrigerators, for example. So the more electronics they have, the more likely is they're going to need a semiconductor. There's two major players in the industry, which are Taiwan and South Korea, which is about a $400 billion industry. And I don't know if you guys have noticed what's been happening in Taiwan, but they're in a record historic drought right now. And if they don't have water to make those semiconductors, there's going to be a bigger problem, because remember, even car companies now are having to slash production due to the fact that they can't find these things anymore. Another thing too is at the end of these videos, I think what I'm going to do from now on is share some of the weather events that are happening around the world. I think I've told you guys in these videos before that the next 10 years I think are going to be challenging in terms of economic, social problems, and also environmental problems as well. So even though they don't report them on the mainstream news because we're too worried about politics and stuff, that's what seems to generate majority of the headlines, right? And I don't get into politics. Remember, these videos, I think we're all tired of politics. So you love Trump, hate Trump, love Obama, hate Obama, right, left, purple, green. I don't get into the politics, but there's going to be a lot more issues, weather issues. So at the end of every video with the unusual facts, I'm going to add those on there. So if you guys want to see those as well at the end. This week, for example, Saudi Arabia, there was a sandstorm that blocked out the sun. And Colorado now, after the Texas freezing, is going to have a record 48-inch snowstorm. So things are great in the world. Things are great. Investment news, China now is poised to halt growth of the world's biggest aluminum industry. They've captured nearly 60% of the global market over the last decade, largely ignored international pressure for air pollution due to the industrial emissions. Now they're setting a goal for carbon neutrality by 2060, but the industry relies heavily on coal-fired power. Now, one of the things that's interesting, and this is kind of how government and things don't piece everything together. They want us all to be carbon neutral, right? It's fine. We need to save the environment. Okay. And China and India are one of the worst violators of the environmental policies. But one of the things that I find ironic is that we're the ones that are sending the factories over there to build the stuff that we need, right? It's like everybody's still a culprit in it, right? But it's a good thing that China's locking down on that. Other than that, the Chinese drone giant DJI Technologies was founded in 2006 and absolutely dominates the market. I know I have purchased quite a bit of those drones. They're great. They control about 90% of the North American market, 70% of the industrial market, and due to the persisting U.S. and China, tensions between the two countries, more likely over time that share is going to decrease. And in international events, with the Biden presidency ever-growing tensions with Saudi Arabia, the next 4 years are probably going to see the souring of tensions between the Saudis and the United States. The Gulf monarchies in the Gulf, which, obviously we get a lot of our oil in the world from there, and all other fossil fuels, they rely for the U.S. as their security guarantor, and smaller states are going to need to navigate between new U.S. leadership and the Saudis. So it's going to be it's not going to be, that's another situation, right? You guys can see what I just said about, economic and social and environmental problems. You guys can see even this is going to add a wrinkle to the whole situation in the next few years. Because even though at the end of the day, Saudi Arabia, whatever you think of them, was one of our most important and one of our only allies there in the Middle East. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. And in unusual facts this week, Elon Musk, his net worth has plunged $27 billion since tech stocks got hammered. So he's no longer the richest man in the world, but the second richest. He must feel bad. He owns nearly 18% of Tesla's shares. And also, he's now worth only $157 billion rather than $177 for Amazon CEO. And then in the weather events, as I mentioned to you, the sandstorms in Saudi Arabia seem to be apocalyptic when they blocked out the sun. It also turned the entire sky blood red. You guys will probably see some of the videos here in just a second. I'll tell the guys to go ahead and add them on there. There's deadly wildfires in Patagonia as well. So it's not just the Amazon. It's not just California. But 15 missing down in Patagonia, which if you guys don't know where Patagonia is, it's in the south, let's say the whole southern tip, let's call it, of South America, in Argentina and Chile. It's a more specific region, but just so you guys get an idea of where that's at. And a Colorado storm, which is supposed to be one of the worst, if not the worst in the last 100 years, is going to bring 48 inches of snow. Portions of Nebraska, South Dakota, Wyoming are going to get 34 inches of snow and gusts of 50 miles per hour in Cheyenne. So that's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next week.